It's almost like the human mind only remembers the good things.
Was there a lot of nostalgia involved for you when playing old Megadeth songs again?
You know, there really isn't the nostalgia so much because it wasn't too long ago that I was just playing these songs with Megadeth, you know, and we've got songs. I mean, there's some songs that we'll play forever, like Peace Sells, In My Darkest Hour, Symphony of Destruction, and then there's some more recent ones like Trust and things like that are just classics from our catalog. Sweating Bullets would probably be another one of those. Probably if there was any nostalgia, it was probably more in playing the Rust in Peace record. And again, not so much Holy Wars and Hangar 18 and songs and Tornado of Souls, things we played over all of our career, but probably going back and digging into things that Dave and I have never ever played since we left the studio. You know, Five Magics, Polaris, you know, songs that we played a lot when we were creating the record, but never ever went out and performed them after that.
You know, yeah. What kind of period do you look back on when you now play these songs?
You know what? It's funny. It's almost like the human mind only remembers the good things. You know what I mean? I think that happens. I think that's why they say, you know, something to the degree that time heals all wounds. You know what I mean? And not that I was ever reflecting on wounds at all, but it's interesting. You know, Dave and I went through a lot of hardships putting Megadeth together, and you know, we were very poor. We were broke. I mean, we took a lot of hard knocks, and it's funny that, you know, he and I sit around and we tell stories about that. In fact, it's funny, Sean Drover's always like, tell me another one, tell me another story, because he loves hearing these stories. And they're funny now because we survived them, you know, but at the time when we were going through them, they weren't very funny. I mean, they were brutal, you know, just different people we lived with and living in studios and cars and vans and, you know, all the craziness that we went through, you know, to get Megadeth to where it, you know, to where it is. But, you know, we did it on just the faith of the music and the fans that were so just intrigued by the band and always came to see us play. I mean, that helped us, you know, live to fight another day.
Yeah, because you've been, of course, away for a while then, maybe not too long, but yeah. Did you sort of miss actually, well, yeah, you participated in other projects, but was the music so powerful that, as you said, maybe it healed the wounds?
Sure, oh, without a doubt. And you know, it's funny, because last year Dave and I talked and we were, you know, it's funny, we talked about, because he goes, look, I was at a place, you know, in 2002 when he walked away from Megadeth, and he said when he was, you know, in 2004, you know, putting the band back together, he'd been away from it for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and there was a period there where he said, he goes, you know, I looked at the band like how you do now, which is kind of forest from the trees, so to speak. You know, you're away from it a little bit, so you kind of get a different perspective on it rather than when you're always just in the band all the time. So he and I, it's cool that he and I both have that perspective to look back on as well, that we can, you know, I kind of come back into Megadeth now at a different, with a different perspective on things that is good, I think. I can be a little more objective because I haven't been so attached to it, you know, and I've been out doing other things musically, which helps me, I'd like to think, benefit Megadeth coming back into it almost from an outsider's perspective.
Can you give an example of a thing of a benefit?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You know, for me, it's like, you know, and I think Dave knew this too, you know, me coming back has created there's a new excitement and a new, and I think people were always excited when there was a new Megadeth record coming out, but there's something about Dave and I working together that makes there's a special thing about that, you know. When I play bass with Dave playing guitar, it sounds like Megadeth, like that, you know. And I think that fans are happy that Dave and I are friends, that we're getting along, because again, you know, the people don't like to have unrest, you know what I mean? It's always better when things are hooked together and people are friends and getting along, and especially with music, you know, because, you know, I've said for a long time, they call it playing music. It's not working music, you know, and it's easy.
But did it become working music for you at a certain point, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it always does to some degree, because this is, you know, it's weird with music. But when you make a living from art, you know, art is something that comes to you at various times, you know, a song, probably a painting, whatever it is, you know, creative things come to you at certain weird times. In the middle of the night, you can be on a certain role where you're very creative for a while, and then for periods you're not creative, you're not in that mindset. And so it's interesting when you make a living from your art, from something that you have to create, you know, because if you get in that sort of assembly line mentality where you have to create on a moment's notice, like, hey, we need you to create now. That's a very weird position to be in, and it does compromise you, and that's when playing music can become not a pleasant thing.